Yeah, moving on to and rounding up this session with a few slides about syntax. And these are more sort of small taste bites about what is to come in next sessions than a very thorough analysis of the language. I mentioned in the beginning that South Saami has a nominative accusative alignment. You see an example here. Manekaichim buchchim, I milked the goat, where we see the singular object marked with the accusative. It could also be translated into I milked a goat. And also, as mentioned before, we find differential object marking in the plural, exemplified with the sentence Delja mane snarra cekim. Then I set up snares to catch birds, where the object, the snares, are marked with the nominative plural. If that person had been talking, had been introduced these snares and would then talk about these snares, then they would have been marked with the accusative. I checked these snares the day after, or something like that. Yeah, a few words about possession, a topic that I think is quite interesting. I see that my little face is in the way for you to see the last clause. That shouldn't be too much of a problem. So South Saami has a genitive possessive and a have possessive. The genitive possessive, which you also find in other more Eastern Finno-Ugric languages. The genitive possessive is an intransitive construction. The construction has a genitive, which is the possessor, and the possessed in the nominative. The example sentence that you find here is Mu elkien le kulme bien. My son has 3 dogs. So the possessor, the son, is marked with the genitive, and the possessed, the dogs, are marked in the nominative. We also find an auxiliary, le, which agrees with the dogs, the possessed. This auxiliary is not obligatory. So if pragmatics allow for it, you would also be able to say Mu elkien kulme bien. My son, 3 dogs. And that could be read in 2 different ways. My son's 3 dogs at nominal possession, or my son has 3 dogs. And this very much depends on pragmatics. But it is frequent that the auxiliary is dropped, is omitted in these contexts. The other possessive construction is a transitive, have possession, which makes use of a verb to have, to own, utne. In this position, it means to have, to hold, to own. We find it in other Samic languages as well. However, only the West Samic languages use it as a have possessive, as a habeo verb. The example reads Achka aya hu spitchetjem utne. So grandma and grandfather had a small farm. You see here that the gloss of utne is in the present tense, but a speaker talks about his grandmother and grandparents. So this happened in the past, but frequently in narratives, speakers would jump into the present, narrative present or historical present. So we can translate this into grandmother and granddad had a little farm, which is also historically or culturally interesting, since the speaker that gave me this sentence is an elderly person himself, so his parents probably had this little farm around, well, the year of 1900 or earlier. So South Saami had also small, well, sort of small farms. So where do I change to the next picture? There we go. Negation, another topic that I really enjoy. South Saami has negative auxiliary. Standard negation is expressed with the negative auxiliary and a form of the main verb that we call the connegative, like in the following example, im möchte dalia. I don't remember now, where we find the negative auxiliary im that encodes person, number, and tense, and negation, and a non-finite form of the main verb, möchte, in this connegative form. C and G is the gloss, and this construction in combination expresses negation. There is lots of really exciting variation in negation, but I won't touch upon this further now. Yeah, questions. Polar questions are marked with clause initial question particles. There are a couple of them, mach and gach, where gach is a southern dialectal form of mach, and meitje. So mach and gach and meitje. And the semantic or any semantic difference between mach and meitje is not entirely clear, but it seems like that meitje is used in contexts where the speaker is less certain if what is being questioned is true or not. Normal polar questions would be formed with the question particle mach quarka, do you understand? And questions where it is more of a wondering and more of seeing if something could be that way are often expressed with meitje. Meitje datne mahta tap upnalit. Could you maybe hold this for me? Moving on to existential clauses and locational clauses. They are quite fun since they are basically just sort of an inversion of each other. Köles mjölke. In the fridge, there is milk. There is milk in the fridge. The first one is an existential predication, whereas the second one, penna burtsne, pen on the table, is a locational predication. Again, the auxiliary, like in the, for instance, genitive possessive, is not obligatory and often omitted. So we could find penna le burtsne. The pen is on the table. We could also find köles mjölke le. In the fridge there's milk. But since they are often omitted, existential and locational predication are well, just an inversion of the other construction.